Habs Unfiltered. I'm your host, Blain Putvey, and I'm joined now by my most favorite specialist co-host, Matt Smith.
Good evening.
Uh, Matt reaches the favoritist levels because he's here.
I've it's been a while. Um, I haven't had a voice really since last Wednesday, so every time you've asked me to want to come on to do a show, it's just been like I just can't do it. Like I can't do. I just there's been no consistency, and even now, like I think the show should be sponsored by Halls because I've got them here beside me. Um, but feeling better than what I was, so hopefully it'll continue and we can kind of get some content in a very important time
Yeah,
with the draft coming up, and obviously Montreal having the fifth overall selection.
yeah. So I'm glad that you're able to come on. Treg, unfortunately, he is detained with family stuff. He's got the grandkids. They've got school plays, all that kind of stuff. So he's clearly got more important things to do.
Yeah,
And I do not blame him one bit for telling us, yeah, no, sorry, boys. I gotta go watch my grandkids.
yeah,
I mean, clearly they are way better entertainment than we are.
very much so. And like one of the things we're going to be talking about is the Sens anyway. So like,
Kind of, sort of,
yeah,
but not really. But before we even get to that, um, we'll just dive right in. So, as we were prepping to begin recording, as we record, it's the 13th of June. It's about 6:45 p.m. Eastern. Tony Marinaro just put out on Twitter that there's some breaking news that Donald Baumforth, the head physiotherapist, and Graham Reinben, the head athletic therapist of the Montreal Canadiens, both of being there for years, both have been relieved of their duties. Now, I look at this and to me, it does signify that the Canadians are following through on that review that they said they were going to make of the medical approach that their training staff had. But I want to make it very clear that these two, who are still, by the way, on the Canadians' main staff page as we speak, so this is not an official firing. But if it does happen, and Tony's right, and Tony's been right in the past many times, so I'm going to take it as if it's true right now. If them being fired, they should not be made the scapegoats. They cannot be made the scapegoats for the 2 years where the Canadians have just been absolutely decimated. They only implement the programs that are put in place by the head of the medical staff, and that's Dr. Mulder.
yeah.
So, in my view, if they're firing them, they should also be making a massive change at the top of their medical staff.
But they won't. He's been there forever. He's been there
That's
for.
it.
He's been there forever.
Isn't that part of the problem, though?
You would think so, yes, but it is kind of an interesting take on this right now of like taking the people out that kind of are more or less every day with the players as opposed to the head doctor. But we'll see where it goes. But I do like that they're doing something. It's gonna make some fans happy that they're at least looking into that kind of stuff because you
True.
can you can understand just as well as I can. It's been atrocious for injuries. Some of them have been definitely um result in a hard hit or a fight or anything like that. You can't really take away from that. But some of the players that were playing through some of these injuries that then led to further serious injury, somebody's got to take the fall, and unfortunately it's not the guy at the top, but we'll see what happens. We can see what comes from it.
Yeah, and while while I do appreciate that the Canadians are following through on what they've stated they wanted to go into on the medical side, like I said, they can't be made scapegoats. This cannot be just a performative, you know, surface change. It's it's putting lipstick on a pig if all you're
Right.
doing is firing a couple of trainers who, by the way, have been there for many, many years and who are only implementing the programs that they are given
Right.
by the head of the staff.
Right.
So I'm a big proponent of the buck stops here. If you're in a position of leadership, you understand this as well. If you're in that position of leadership, you're in charge. Whether you made the call or you made the mistake or not, it's still your department, and ultimately you're at fault.
Right.
So
You never know. Maybe this happens. Hockey gods are on our side. We get a full roster that plays 82 games apiece. Just everybody, just they get a bath and icy hot after every game and good to go.
maybe they can get one of those stars from Mario Brothers, you know, that make you invincible.
Yeah. I take it.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
All right, so that's the news right now. So we'll see how this shakes out over the next couple of days. We'll obviously take a look at it as it comes out, but we'll move on from there to what you hinted at earlier, where we were talking about Ottawa, and the Senators have been sold to Michael Andlauer for $950 million. He also owns 10% of the Montreal Canadiens, which now he must sell.
Yeah. He also owns the Hamilton Bulldogs.
Yes, and there's some news that perhaps Steve Staios will become the new GM of the Senators once this is finalized.
Could be that's an interesting take.
That would really change the direction of the team, because I thought Dorian was doing a fairly decent job considering
last year he took a big step. He was really one of those GMs, and especially in a Canadian market, that you were kind of like, this guy isn't doing nothing. And like, look at the draft picks he's bringing in. Look at where the team's finishing, etc. Last year, he was aggressive. He was very aggressive, and he was able to bring in a guy that actually wanted to be there in Claude Giroux, and he had a fantastic season in his first year, and then signed some guys to some pretty decent contracts for what they bring to the team in Stützle and Tkachuk, and was aggressive at the draft and brought in DeBrincat as well. But they have a lot of holes in their lineup. They're one of those teams that they have a lot of guys left to sign, and they've got a lot of holes in their lineup. And if we're talking about Dorian not coming back, there's obviously the chance that a guy like DJ Smith doesn't come back. For me, I'm just happy that this process is over, because it seems that every time you turn the damn television on, it's someone new that said that they're going to bid on it. And you know what? Yeah, it would have been cool if it would have been a guy like Ryan Reynolds or Snoop Dogg or something like that, and bring in that kind of I guess paparazzi, or kind of bring that entertainment factor, I guess, to the organization. However, you're bringing in a guy who's a businessman, as you said. He owns 10%, or he does for now, at least, which I'm sure that 10% is not going to be very hard to sell, especially since the Canadians are valued at a hell of a lot more than $950 million. And
so if 1.8, I think it's $1.6 billion is the value, so that would mean 160 million.
Yeah. So and you know that's going to get inflated. Yeah. So he's not going to have any issues with that. But I'll say congratulations to him. It's going to be interesting to see if they build a new arena that's not in Canada, maybe some that's closer to downtown, maybe some in the LeBreton Flats that they've been talking about forever. But happy that it's finally over.
Yeah. They can move on from that. And it does bring up another point that Bruce Garriock brought up in the Ottawa Sun today, and that is DeBrincat. So it seems that DeBrincat does not want to spend the next 8 years in a Canadian market for
No.
whatever reason. So he is clearly going to have to be traded before the draft, which means now with new ownership and there's deeper pockets and there's willingness to spend, they'll make changes. The Senators may take a little bit of a step back, but I think in the long run, this might work out, especially for when they move to Quebec City.
Yeah. Yeah. But you're looking at a guy in DeBrincat, undersized forward, much like Cole Caulfield. And he's a two-time 40 goal scorer. He scored 30 once last year with his first year and probably only year with the Sens. He still put up 66 points and 27 goals. Still very good numbers. It's just as a restricted free agent, he's coming off a deal that was paying him $6.4 million. His qualifying offer is $9 million.
Yeah.
So I can see
Yeah.
that definitely scaring off the Sens because he's not a $9 million player, to say the least. He might try to hit the market and make more than the 6.4 that he has right now. But we'll see where he ends up. I believe he's from Michigan. So I'll just say he's going to Detroit. There you go. Done. It's going
There
home.
you go. But the fact that he wants it, it seems that by dropping the hole, he doesn't want to be in Canada for the next 8 years.
Right.
It kind of makes you lean towards the fact that he might be looking to sign an 8-year deal, which he can only do with the Senators,
Right.
which means a sign and
A sign and
trade.
trade,
So
yeah.
that's good for the Senators because then they could up the value.
Let's just say they can't lose him for nothing. Or they can't get kind of we don't know the teams that are on his list.
Yeah.
Or teams that he'd be willing to sign an extension with. So we can't really speculate much on that. But they kind of can't get pushed into a corner, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And kind of lose out on the value that player brings because they did give up quite a bit to get him.
They did. They really did. They gave a 7th overall pick. It's just one of the pieces that they gave up for.
Right.
So there's that. But hey, shit happens. Sorry, Ottawa. Deal with it, I suppose. This ain't this ain't a Senators show, so we don't have a lot of sympathy for the Senators. Player, whatever his number is going to move on, and
yeah,
what are you going to do? All right, but that takes us to the next step, and this is something that also just popped up today, and that's or in the last day or so, Patrick Roy leaving the Quebec Rempart.
Yep.
And he says there's no NHL teams knocking at the door, but a guy like him doesn't just up and quit a team that just won a Memorial Cup unless he's got something in the works.
I could see him maybe taking a little bit of time off, but I'm sure he's taking calls. For me, I think he's done enough when it comes to coaching. Like, yes, he didn't coach very long in the NHL level, but I don't think that he needs to. I think that he can go in a more of a front office role and really help out a team just with bringing his vast amount of hockey experience. He completely turned around that Quebec franchise.
He did.
So
turned them
yes,
into a
there's
powerhouse this year.
So over, depending on what the role that he was given, but you give him the right role, and I'm sure that he would very much succeed in the market that he was in. And I would bring him into the Canadiens organization with open arms. I really would. He's been a favorite of mine for years. I remember when I was in elementary school, I had a folder that had him on the front of it, and I used it all the time. I probably even still have it. The guy's a phenomenal player. numbers retired in Montreal. For him to come back, I think it would be incredible. Will it actually happen? Probably not,
Probably not.
but we'll see.
Yeah. So wish him the best of luck. Love to see him in Montreal again someday. But in the meantime, we'll move on to somebody who is rumored to want to go to Montreal, and that's Pierre-Luc Dubois. I know. Everybody's starting to get a little bit tired of this whole will he, won't he stuff with Dubois. And good news, folks. Whatever it is, wherever he goes, whatever happens, it's going to happen between now and the draft.
That's right.
So a couple more weeks, and it's going to be over until 2 years later when he demands another trade.
Yeah.
But right now, the two teams that are supposedly at the top of the list who are in the running are the Habs and the Kings.
Yeah.
That kind of makes it so there's going to be a sign and trade deal, and that's what his agent is pushing for. And right now, the rumor is 9 million a year, but let's be honest, he's more of an 8.15 kind of player.
He's up there, but like if you're looking at bringing him to the Montreal Canadiens, would you pay him more than Suzuki?
Maybe. I mean, with Suzuki and Caulfield, you were paying for players who are still within that RFA range.
Yes.
They weren't as old, they weren't as established. With him, he's a little bit older, a little bit more established. So you could see how he can be given something slightly above.
Yeah.
But nothing like
Caulfield, because like Suzuki's at making 7.875. He's 23 years old.
Yeah.
Right. Dubois is 24. He'll be 25 in 10 days.
Yeah.
Right. So I can see it. I can see it's coming off a 1 year, $6 million deal. I would give him somewhere between probably 7.5. Probably somewhere between 7.5 and 8. And I think that he would take.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I would go as far as to like 8.2, something along that. But to go beyond that, because his comparables are down a little bit lower. Like he's using Barzal as a comparable who's in the 9 million range.
Right.
But I don't see, the points per game average is a little higher for Barzal.
Right.
He has been an Islander for life. So there's some money involved in that kind of loyalty.
Yes. And he played 73 games this year, put up 27 goals. So if he would have played a full season, likely would have hit 30 and say 70 points.
Yeah.
Right. Pretty good numbers, but is that $9 million money?
No.
Right.
Do you expect him to do more than 70 points?
Maybe. Not right yet. Not with the players, not with the players that he would be playing with Montreal at the start.
So then would he be worth that kind of money anyway, even the lower end?
Perhaps. It could be you might go down a little bit, but even if they gave him 7.5 to have a 1-2 punch at center making about 15-16 million bucks, that's not too bad.
No, I agree. That would be an amazing coup by Hughes. And I think it puts to the test the whole I want to be in Montreal thing.
Yes.
How badly does he want to be in Montreal? Is he willing to take a little bit less to play in Montreal or not? Now,
and maybe he's asking for the extra, or this has been leaked because as we know, you go play in Montreal, you're taxed up the ass.
Or he could be leaking this so that other teams are thinking that the pot's a little too sweet. We're not going to get
Right, right,
into the pool.
right.
There's dozens of reasons why stuff like this
There
gets
is.
out.
Like he's
Uh,
would I welcome him to Montreal? Absolutely.
sure.
I think he'd be great. And it would open up the debate. Do you keep him at center? Do you throw him on the wing, etc.? Because you still have Kirby Doc. Um, any trade, however, you don't add Kirby Doc. A lot of people have been talking about it, saying, well, you
Yeah.
just flip Doc to Winnipeg. They get a young center back. You get a young center that's Quebec born. No, I'm not doing that deal. It's not going to happen. Um, the goal is to bring them both in and to have both of them on the team. We'll see how it goes, but I liked what I saw from Doc when he played on the wing. So for me, I would put him on the wing over Dubois and have your top line could literally be what it was when everyone started getting injured and they were like, let's just put all of our good players on the top line with Suzuki, Caulfield, and Doc. That could be a good number one line. Having a guy like Dubois as your 2C, and we even saw it last year in the a short amount of time that Monahan played, having that 2C is extremely important, and it's good for the longevity of Nick Suzuki. So you bring him
Yeah.
in, all of a sudden, you play him with, I'll just spitball, Slavkovsky and Josh Anderson. That is a big line. Everybody can put the puck in the net. And then you kind of make your lineup from there. But I think for me, that sounds like a good top six. Then you're also looking at who you draft this year and their development path, or you look 3 years down the road when Michkov's in the lineup. See what I did there, right? And all of a sudden you've got a goal scorer on each line.
Yes, that's true. And the Habs Unfiltered account put out a poll earlier today. Currently, after about 5 hours, there's 340 votes, and it's 100% no on trading Doc for Dubois.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
No,
No.
because the Canadians hold the trump card here. He
Yes.
wants out.
Yes.
He wants out
As
of
does a
Winnipeg.
lot of people in Winnipeg. I
Yeah.
think that Kevin Shoveldayoff has done a good job at manufacturing a talented team. Brought in Rick Bowness. Rick Bowness made some changes. Rick Bowness was not happy with his team's effort, which was a very famous sound clip from the playoffs this year. Changes are going to be made. A guy like Blake Wheeler at his 8.25 cap hit probably won't be back. He's got one more year left. Mark Scheifele, who's an alternate captain, 6.125. Again, 1 year left on his deal. He's likely gone. They've already said that Connor Hellebuck doesn't want to sign long-term in Winnipeg, so he's likely gone. A Vezina caliber goaltender at 6.16 million, one more year. So
Oh,
you look at all these players, and these are very important players for this franchise. Yes, they're going to want pieces back. They're going to want value back for these pieces, especially for the names that I mentioned. However, some of these guys have no movement clauses, modified no trade clause, etc. The only guy that really doesn't that I named is Hellebuck.
yeah. Now he still though has a little bit of leverage. So basically, Shoveldayoff is going to have to try to make moves to. It's clear it's going to be a rebuild. So he's going to be looking for futures as best as he can. And he's got his work cut out for him because all the players have leverage. And in the case of Dubois, he refuses to sign a contract. He wants out. He's made it very clear, and he's been clear for the last 2 years of where he wants to go.
Yeah.
So if it's the Canadians, he's not going to get as good of a trade value as he would hope. The talkings is that Quinton Byfield would be part of the package, and that would instantly trump anything the Canadians would be willing to trade.
Yeah, but why would you do that? Why would you give up? Why would you give up Quinton Byfield? Second overall pick.
They want to win now.
I wouldn't like.
I wouldn't.
But like, you look at the Kings roster, I think this is more of a backup plan for Anze Kopitar. He's coming off of this is his last season. He's at a $10 million cap hit. He's 36 years old, still a hell of a player, great two-way center, but he's getting up there in age. He's still got Philip Deneau there. He's got 4 more years left. He's 30 years old, making $5.5 million. They still need to sign a guy like Gabe Vilardi, who's had a lot of injuries, can play center of the wing, restricted free agent. You get Quinton Byfield, again, still cheap, just under $900,000 on his entry-level deal. But then you've got guys that still really haven't made a splash in Alex Turcotte. Right? You also have a guy that they just signed to a contract that had a very good season with I believe he played for Kitchener in Francisco Pinelli. So you've got these guys that are coming up, and I don't see Dubois being a fit with the Kings.
The only reason I think they would do this is if they feel that Kopitar is retiring.
Yeah.
I don't think he will. I don't think he's planning on it. He looks like the kind of guy, because he was still a Selke Trophy caliber player this past year who was very productive. He could still play for another 5 years, and he could probably sign for a good team-friendly contract just to finish his career as a King.
Yeah.
And they could put a statue of him next to Browns. Honestly, they really could.
Yeah.
So unless he flat out says, I'm retiring at the end of this season, I see no real reason, specifically for all the points you made.
Yeah.
They have far too many actual good future centers to justify not just the cap hit that it would take. They'd have to make room by trading some players away, and they would have to give up massive numbers of futures.
Right.
So I don't see how that benefits the Kings if they want to win now.
Not to get off too far off, but I really think that for the Kings, the thing that they really needed was goaltending. If you want something, maybe go out and talk about Connor Hellebuyck. You bring Connor Hellebuyck into a team that plays quite a defensive style, but that can strike on the other end if need be. You're turning that team around.
I mean, Korpisalo did very well for the Kings after the trade deadline.
He did.
But you put Hellebuyck in place of Korpisalo with the same lineup, and that team moves a little bit further up the line.
Right.
So I agree. I think Hellebuyck would be the guy they should go after. And
right.
they do have the assets.
And there have been talks that they're looking to move on from Victor Arvidsson, who's $4.25 million, but he's still a guy put up 59 points this year in 77 games. So like, it's not like he's a throw-in contract or anything. It's just he'd be a guy that they'd want to move if they're bringing in another body that's going to be making $7 million plus.
And it's a guy they could flip if they do make that deal.
Yes.
So you can double down and get more futures for one of the assets you've picked up for Hellebuyck, which is great for Winnipeg. So I mean, the Kings being in the mix kind of makes sense, but at the end of the day, I don't believe it's really necessary for them. I
Yeah.
mean, I watch a lot of Kings games
Yep.
because my favorite player is Drew Doughty, so I watch a lot of his games. Um, so I don't
I
know.
honestly think he's Montreal's to lose.
Yes.
If Ken Hughes wants Pierre-Luc Dubois to be on this team, and he thinks that he can bring something to this lineup, if he can play in a lineup with Suzuki, Caulfield, Doc, and be within that youth movement and be able to have a fantastic relationship with Martin St. Louis like the other guys do, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
It is a no-brainer, but
Yeah.
you can't overpay contract-wise, and you can't overpay asset-wise. You have to be, this is a business at the end of the day. You've got to be
Yeah.
a little bit ruthless and say, Mr. Cheveldayoff, this is my offer, take it or leave it. And if Dubois really wants to play hardball, he just has to sit out,
Yeah.
Do the Leafs approach. Just sit there and wait till Dubas gives you a big contract.
Which you might.
Yeah.
No, I agree. And I mean, if you're looking at PLD at around 8 million, let's
Yep.
just say 8 million for 8 years. That's a lot of money
Yep.
on the cap. You have to move some assets
you'll have to move out some. You might even look into a buyout or anything like that. However, a guy like Hoffman, $4.5 million, he's off the books at the end of the season. You might be able to throw him at a team that's trying to make the cap or trying to just get some draft picks, and you might be able to just move him out with a draft pick. There was speculation that there was quite a bit of interest in Joel Edmondson. $3.5 million. His contract's over at the end of the year.
And not to mention the fact that the word is that if they were to move Dubois, they want a center as well. So you've got Dvorak is there.
Christian Dvorak, yeah.
So there's 4.45,
yeah.
Which obviously he is not enough.
You'd still have to sweeten the pot. But I would do Dvorak. There's your roster center. That's 4.45 off. I would throw in Florida's first round pick.
Mm-hmm.
So late first round pick. Throw in maybe like a fourth this year as well. Right? Okay. Because Montreal's got 3 of them. So that's just for on the draft picks. And then I would give them not a top prospect, but I would give them one that has some potential.
Like what kind of level prospect? Are we talking a Lane Hudson, an Owen Beck?
No, I would be looking at like a Riley Kidney.
So like a B level prospect.
Yeah.
See, I see that, and for the Canadiens, that makes sense, especially when they have some leverage. But for Cheveldayoff, I don't think that's something he'd want. He'd hold out, I think, until that was the only option. And to me, that would kind of scream formative. It looks like Hughes is making an offer that seems fair, but he's only doing it to say, hey, I gave it a try. I kicked the tires. The price was too much. Moving on.
Right.
And I'm okay with that. I'm absolutely okay with that.
Or do you give another roster player like maybe a Jordan Harris
instead of, or in addition to?
Either or.
See, that's a tough call. It's a very tough call. Harris does hold a lot of value.
Because you've got Barron coming up. You got Jack Eye coming back from injury. He's due for a contract after next season. You've got Caden
Gooley.
Gooley. Kovacevic did very well in his first year. Eventually, you're going to see a guy like Logan Mailloux make the jump.
Lane Hudson.
Lane Hudson.
But that's a couple of years down the line. So for now, moving a Jordan Harris, someone who has embraced being a Montreal Canadian, he was the King Clancy Award winner for the Canadians.
Right.
So you got a guy who's involved in the community, who's, I believe his girlfriend is from the area, and they're involved in the community. That's a tough thing to move out, because he brings more to the table than just solid defensive play.
Right.
So there's a lot of value there. So if he is on the table and they still say no, that's when you just get up and walk away, because him, in addition to all of what you mentioned, that's still too much in my opinion.
Right.
Now, clearly Dubois' value is more. I mean, you could say that he could be worth the 5th overall pick. You could argue that.
But what about
but you're not going to do that.
What if you give up the Florida pick, and you give up Montreal's second, which is pick 37?
No, I'd rather hold on to the picks this year. Right? I would much prefer moving, say, a 2024 first round pick. The Canadians have 2 of them.
Yeah.
You can give them the Calgary's pick, for God's sakes. Who cares? Whenever that shows up, shows up.
Right.
Whatever year it falls on, have it. But yeah, no, just because of the fact that he has made it extremely clear since he's been in Columbus that Montreal is the destination.
I don't feel like they have to overpay. Like, I threw it out there just like what I think, but there'll be some sort of money go back the other way, probably a center. You're going to throw in a young player. I'm just going to throw a guy out there like Kidney, or maybe even a Sean Farrell. Okay. But then not have to give up as many assets.
True.
Right.
More quality versus quantity kind of argument.
Right.
But this is basically
so like Dvorak, Farrell, or Dvorak, Farrell, and Florida's pick.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's pretty close to the max they're going to get in any trade value.
Yeah.
To be honest. But in this whole scenario, this whole Dubois soap opera, it's a giant game of chicken.
It is.
And Hughes doesn't need to flinch.
He doesn't.
Dubois is a good to have, but he's not an absolute must get.
Right. Remember, guy was a player agent.
Yeah.
He knows how to talk. He knows how to negotiate. He knows how to bullshit.
He knows the value. He seems bullshit. To set, and he sets values on players, and his goals. There's a value to them, and he sticks to those. So I cannot see him playing a game of chicken and losing, especially in a case where you don't have to get this guy to advance your program. He helps, but he's not a central piece.
No, but I don't think, like, I know a lot of people have said, you can get him for nothing next year. You can get him for nothing next year. You can get him for nothing next year.
Signs for 8.
Not if he signs. And that's likely what he's going to be looking for.
Yeah.
He's turning 25 years old. He's not going to want a 1-year contract, 1-year show me contract. Last year, he showed. He put on a good season. He had a good season.
Yeah.
Right? Yes, he missed, say, 10 games or whatever it is, but he still had a very good season, and he looked pretty good in the playoffs.
Yeah, and he's still inconsistent. He's a guy who could take over a game if he really wanted to, but there's games where he just disappears. Yeah. So it's not like he's consistently the best player.
No,
but he can be.
No, do I think that he could be a point a game player? maybe,
Sure.
maybe, but
Right circumstance,
I can
yes.
see him being a solid 60, 70 point guy.
Now, I'm not against players who get 60 to 70 points. That's actually better than the vast majority of NHLers. What you want with players like that, however, is you want them to bring something a little different, something a little bit more. Even though it's not points, they got to bring something to the table. Uh, so in Suzuki's case, he's a guy who's going to probably be a 70-point player for a long term,
Yes.
but he brings an excellent defensive part to the
Yes.
game.
Yes.
He plays both ways. He Caulfield scores a ton of goals, and he can still play a little bit of defense. And he's willing to do the little things to sacrifice for the team.
Right.
So it's all these little things you want from your star players, especially. Does Dubois have anything special that he brings beyond the 70 points? And yes, he's got size. Yes, he can dominate at times. But what else does he bring?
He's good on the power play.
Yes, that's true.
I'll
That's
give him
absolutely
that.
true.
I'll give him that. He's good on the power play. I think he scored. He scored like at least 10 goals of his 27 were on the power play, and I think last year it was more than half. Right, so like he's good
Yeah,
on the power play. He's good on the forecheck. He can kind of ramp up his game when needed, when he's agitated, when the team needs it.
he can
And then I'm kind of
at
looking
times.
at the whole Quebec factor. Will he be Drouin in Montreal, or will he
Yeah.
take his game to the next level?
Yeah,
When the
and see, I
fans,
made that point.
when the fans get behind him, when they, when he gets a player of the game for his first time, or when he scores his first goal and he hears the fans. Obviously I'm
Mhm.
spitballing here, but will that be the the energy that he needs to elevate his game and take that to the next level?
Maybe there's an issue in Montreal as well. If you're a local player and someone trades for you, especially providing a large piece that
Yeah.
everyone seems to like, um, there's an expectation on you.
Yes.
So that adds pressure. Can he handle that? Possibly. And when I was asking about an additional piece, what else does he bring? He brings a possession style game, which fits with the Canadians.
Yes.
He's basically he's almost 60% on the Corsi in possession. So he's very good at gaining possession, keeping possession, and generating shots on net.
Right.
All things the Canadians need.
Yeah.
But that expectation, especially if they sign him for more than the captain, that's going to be hard for
That's
him to
right.
meet up, especially if he doesn't reach the 70-point plateau right away.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't think he can next season with the Canadians with the lineup they have.
No, I don't think so either. But he's a guy that can come in. He can be a 2C,
Yeah.
power play time, etc. They
Or
can
top
load that.
winger.
They can absolutely load up that top power play if they want.
Yeah.
Have him out there, say Caulfield, Suzuki, Dubois, Matheson, and somebody. Right. So I see a lot of potential. I really do. But again, at the end of the day, the price has to be right for the Canadians, and it can't hurt them long term. It can't just be like, I want this future, I want this, I want this, I want this. And then if it doesn't work out with Dubois, you've got a guy signed long term who's just a player on the roster. I don't think that's going to happen. I do think that this guy has it. There's something about him. I like him. I've liked him since he got into the league. I saw him play a little bit when he played in Cape Breton. I know you did as well. There's something about his game that I like. And I think that for the right price, opening day, he starts with the Montreal Canadiens. Deal could be made on the draft floor while we're there.
True. Now, I'm sure that last summer when we were at the draft in Montreal, he just happened to be there just to see the show. I'm sure it had nothing to do with him wanting to go to Montreal.
Yeah.
But no, yeah. So we are going to be in Nashville. We are going to be there. I do expect to see a lot of fireworks on that first day. Uh, and this does kind of, it fits with Hughes's
Yeah.
overall
I can
MO.
see this draft being similar to the draft in Florida in 2015 when a shitload of deals went down prior to, and people were outside and they were like, this guy got traded, what the fuck, like Lucic got
Yeah.
traded, and like that was when Boston went and got all those first round picks and everything. I can see it being similar to that we see the guys from Winnipeg start moving it. We see a guy like Dubois maybe get traded, DeBrincat get traded. Like all this stuff might happen leading into the draft, not necessarily on the floor when everyone's dressed in their nice clothes and they're on TV, right?
True. True. I think
I
I
really
think
think I really think that we could see a splash.
the day
But but
before
but but
or
it
the
could
day of,
happen. But it could happen right after the Stanley Cup final.
I think there's going to be
We
a lot of
right we
stuff going
right we
on.
might see couples start to flow in right away.
Maybe. I know we'll see team arbitration being selected.
Yep.
So that's going to happen right away. Trades, maybe next week. I mean, once Vegas wins tonight in game five, uh, a couple of days later, I can
Right.
see some trades happening. But with stuff like Dubois or the bigger moves, the bigger names, I see that more of a post NHL awards show to the draft. So that
What is the night
2 day
before?
span,
That is the night before.
2 nights before,
2 nights
there's a
before,
whole day in
whatever.
there.
Yeah.
There's a whole day in there. So
Yeah.
I do expect to see quite a bit of movement in that day after, and then the day of the draft.
Right.
And
It's a quick flight for me from Toronto. So hopefully nothing, not too much doesn't break while I'm in the air, but we'll see.
yeah, well, we'll find out. I'm going to be flying in for the NHL awards, covering that for the hockey writers. So keep an eye on that for our listeners. I'll be there covering the draft for the hockey writers. You're going to be there with us every step of the way,
Yep.
and it should be a good time.
It should be absolutely a lot of barbecue.
Yeah,
I'm
and
wearing my
I
stretchy
have
pants.
and I have no doubt they'll announce Vegas as the next destination, which I
That's gonna be fucking dangerous next year.
not for me.
I've never been. However, I have watched The Hangover a lot.
Well, I'm
So
going to be
I
doing
know what I'm
Hangover
getting
Part
into,
Two.
right? I know what
You
I'm
guys will
getting
be in.
into.
You guys are going to be in Vegas doing Hangover Part One. I'm going to be in Singapore doing Hangover Part Two
Well, there you go.
at the same time
Yeah,
because I will be overseas at that time, so
right.
I can't go to Vegas. Crap.
Yeah.
All right, so that pretty much does it for the show. I want to thank everyone who has tuned in and listened and stuck with us until the end of this. Matt, do you have any final thoughts?
Nothing. I'm just looking forward to the draft and looking forward to the next some of these mock drafts coming out. I know Bob McKenzie's final rankings are going to be coming out soon. I know TSN always puts up a really good mock draft. Sportsnet does the same thing. So be sure to go out there and check those out. But at the same time, go out there and support the little guys. Go and check it. I know that some people are anti Grant, but Grant does, you know what? Grant does really good work. He really does.
Nice.
So recruits hockey, does very good work. Check out his draft guide. He puts a lot of effort into it. Draft Pro, more friends from the show. there's so many that I can name. They all do great work. Guys, friends of the show like Craig Button. Some people are giving him flack right now because he put out a top, his list, and then somebody from TSN and their media or their like production group or whatever turned it into a mock draft, which is not what he tried to do at all. All
Made
those
a
are
meme
as
of
his
it.
rank. All those are as his rankings. Montreal is not getting Sandine Pellikka at number 5. You've heard it here first. It's not happening.
No, no,
Okay.
they're getting Reinbacher. Come on
Yeah. So there's my long-winded
now.
final words. Other than
Okay.
that, if the people that make halls are listening, or the people that make vitamin water are listening, we will take sponsorships.
Well, yeah, we're not above being bribed or
Buy me,
purchased.
just fucking throw the money at me. That's what's going to be
Yeah.
happening in Vegas next year. So I'm just going to getting myself ready. Just me and the
Yeah.
Bellagio fountain and a bunch of ones.
Sounds like a decent weekend. All right. And on the note that for myself, the final thought on the note that you brought up about Grant McKegg, and as people listen to the show, it'll be out the Wednesday morning, the 14th. His list should be out today. And he is going to be coming back on the show within a week to talk about his list, to talk about the prospects. Hadi Kalakash is going to be returning to discuss prospects again. We're going to have more prospect talk, more draft talk, and it's with people who have spent the entire year watching these prospects.
Yeah.
So whether you agree with their positioning of a specific prospect or not, that doesn't make them stupid.
Right.
It just means they have a different point of view.
And to our listeners, if there's somebody that you'd like to see us maybe have on, send us a message. Say, hey, we'd like you to talk to this guy.
Yeah.
Or, hey, we enjoyed the show when you had this guy on. Get him on again. And like it's stuff that we pass on to these guests and these returning guests, and we give them this information, and they really appreciate it.
They really do. Lyle Richardson, Specters Hockey, we get a lot of emails and messages when he comes on, and he comes on quite often.
He does.
He's been on the show more than anybody else. I think even more than Treg.
Probably.
And he really does appreciate those messages of support. So yeah, if you guys have ideas, you guys got someone you want to hear from, let us know. We'll reach out and get these people. So again, thank you everybody for listening. Thank you for tuning in. And remember, if you're